the Chiefs and Titans. This is a very, very interesting game that I think will go down to the wire, and I think that most people now are coming to that conclusion, whether it's because they think it's funny that the Tennessee Titans are a 6th seed making noise, or they truly believe that this has matchups written all over it. This has mismatches on the defensive side for both teams written all over it. And when talking about these two teams, we know the names that pop up. We have Patrick Mahomes, who's I think the best quarterback in the league and will be for a good amount of time. Derrick Henry, who is a bulldozer of a running back. Andy Reid, who is an offensive mastermind. And then you have Mike Vrabel, who has gotten the most defensively and emotionally from his team, being an ex-football player himself. And then you have Tyreek Hill, who came out and was like, yeah, no one can cover us as wide receivers because we're that fast. And part of that's true, but part of it's not. There's so much to unpackage on the offensive side and defensive side for both the teams, but I'm going to keep it very, very simple. And I think that when I simplify it, to me, there is one person that I want to talk about who I believe can change the coin flip of this game. And I believe that is Steve Spagnuolo of the Kansas City Chiefs. He is the Chiefs defensive coordinator. So I'm going to give a brief background history on Steve Spagnuolo. Wow, I cannot say his name. Steve Spagnuolo. So just some brief background history. He was the defensive assistant defensive backs coach, linebackers coach, all at different times. He was the defensive assistant first for a bit, and then the defensive backs coach for a bit, and then the linebackers coach for a bit. Throughout his tenure with the Philadelphia Eagles, where he was coaching under Andy Reid. So there's a bit of familiarity between him and Andy Reid, which is part of the reason why he ended up getting the job with the Chiefs, because there is some familiarity, and they're like, okay, let's see if we can get something going and get to the Super Bowl and win. And then after the Eagles, he joined the Giants in the 2007-2008 seasons, where he played a key role in defeating the undefeated Patriots, who had the highest scoring offense in NFL history at that time. And he helped hold them to 14 points, 16-0, highest scoring offense in NFL history at that moment. And they only got 14 points in the Super Bowl, and the Giants won. We know how it goes. They won. But then from there, after leaving the Giants, he bounced around the league. He had his success went like this. It peaked very, very fast, and then it just crashed. Where he had head coaching jobs, didn't really go well. He had some, I think, defensive coordinating jobs, and it just didn't go well. And then he got back to the Giants for a bit, and then he was eventually fired. And I think that's when his story gets more interesting, to be honest. And instead of jumping back into the coaching carousel or the chaos of coaching that he's been going through, he decided to take some time off. And it was very, very risky because he had not been having that much success. And at that point, you don't really know if people are going to pick up the phone after a year to call you and offer you a job out of their way. But he decided that would be best for him, for his success, for his nature, for his being, to take a year off from coaching football and just give himself some time. Just give himself a year off, and then after that, see if any teams are interested. And I think that that's both risky, but I think that it was smart and very, very good of him, because, and I did this a bit, where during my break, it gave me a lot of ideas where, just one day you're like, wow, if I was working and I was like writing all this stuff down for this podcast, I'd have completely ignored it, or I would have pushed it off, or I just wouldn't have come back to it later on. Whereas during the break, I'm like, wow, that'd be amazing to talk about, and I want to dive further into that. And I think that was some of what Steve Spagnuolo got, where he could open himself to new perspective, new ideas, and really delve into it rather than having to teach it to other football players, to reteach it to other football players. And instead he could just take some time to be a student himself of the game and really just sit down, watch some film, and learn for himself, and learn some new things too. And so during his time away, he decided to go into the NFL Films headquarters. He lives pretty close to it. It was in an article that I read talking about this. And he'd just go there and just pull up a chair, put up a table, get a whole bunch of papers, create a mess, and just study film without worrying for the next game or like I said, teaching his players. And instead, he could just sit down, watch film, focus in on whatever he wanted to focus in on. I think he said that he initially focused in on the defensive line because he coached linebackers and cornerbacks, but he never really focused on the defensive line. And so he could study from the league best, like Aaron Donald, or as a collective unit, like the Chiefs defense. Not overall wise, but the defensive line from last year was spectacular, getting a lot of sacks, or even the Rams in general. Not necessarily Aaron Donald by himself, but he could study the league best individually and collectively on the defensive side and offensive side if he chose, and just learn and soak it all up. And I think that by having that time off, he developed as a football coach, learned a lot of new things, I believe, but also as a person, and that specifically, you bring that to the locker room and you get a different level of respect, and you have a lot different way of approaching situations as a coach, I believe. And now that he's with the Chiefs have the 7th best scoring defense and 8th best pass defense. But their run defense is more to the bottom of the spectrum, which is where I think that a lot of people are like, ooh, maybe the Titans can get an upset right here. But I believe that Steve Spagnuolo, the Titans beat them 35-32 earlier in the season. And I think that Steve Spagnuolo has something up his sleeve for this. And I think that he has made the right adjustments. And I have my faith in that squad, especially in Steve Spagnuolo. And also the offensive side, of course, of the Chiefs with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and all those weapons that they have. So I believe that Steve Spagnuolo has something up his sleeve to handle Derrick Henry, to slow him down. Not to completely stop him by any means, because you cannot stop Derrick Henry. He has just been going crazy. But you can limit his production and limit the efficiency and how much of that production actually helps that team. If it's just garbage yards, like 3 yards, that, it's 4th and 10, or not 4th and 10, 3rd and 10, and he gets like 3-4 yards if they chose to run it, I guess, in that situation. Or maybe 1st and 15 and he gets 3 yards. And at that point, you're like, you know what? That's okay. So I believe that Steve Spagnuolo has a plan and that the Chiefs will just do enough, especially with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid on the other side of the football, to get on the other side of that 35-32 loss into a win, and also to Miami. And I believe that they have the skills and the talent and the coaching required in order to win the Super Bowl.